Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are your hosts. Movie Club is a show where we pick a movie every week and discuss it, just like a book club. On today's show, we're covering the action drama Gladiator. Our thoughts and more coming up here on Movie Club. Released in 2000, Gladiator was directed by Ridley Scott and stars Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, and Connie Nielsen. A former Roman general sets out to exact vengeance against the corrupt emperor who murdered his family and sent him into slavery. It is currently ranked 35 on IMDb's Top 250 and has a 4.1 on Letterboxd. The film was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Direction, Best Original Score, Best Film Editing, Best Cinematography, Best Original Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor for Joaquin Phoenix, and Best Director. It won 5 for Best Visual Effects, Best Sound, Best Costume Design, Best Actor for Russell Crowe, and Best Picture. Before we dive into our thoughts, we do want to issue a spoiler warning for the film. If you haven't seen the movie, we are going to be spoiling a lot of what happens in the movie. So if you want to go out into it and be spoiler-free and as blind as possible, then don't watch this. Come back later after you've watched it. But if you have seen it, thank you for being here. Stay tuned to the end of the show to find out what movie we're going to be covering next week, though, because it is going to be a doozy. Alrighty, Kevin. So Gladiator is the pick this week, and I believe, yes, Gladiator is the movie you have selected for this week. Why'd you pick it?
It's a good movie. Plain and simple. I mean, I just recently watched this movie, like, for first time viewing, so this would only be my second time viewing. First time viewing, I absolutely loved it. So I wanted to rewatch it again to see if I still had that feeling for this movie.
Sure. Yeah, I had seen this movie several times through the course of my life. I think I first saw it while I was in high school, or right around that age. And then obviously I've watched it. We watched it on the podcast a couple of years ago at this point. Yeah, this is a movie that I'm very familiar with. I mean, it was one of those ones that, you know, it was more appropriate, I think, for people my age and stuff, or when I was in high school and stuff, than like Saving Private Ryan was. And so a lot of people in like my social circle, like this was our Saving Private Ryan, right? And I remember really enjoying it when I was younger. And now that I'm kind of like with more of a critical eye, I definitely don't think this movie is fantastic, but I do still think that it is good. I think there's just a couple too many things that work against it to kind of keep it from being like a truly good film. But we'll talk a little bit about that more as we dive in here. So a little confused. You said this was your second time viewing the movie?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So what'd you like about it? Kind of a weird loaded question. I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm like, what stands out to you?
So what's wrong with this movie?
What do you like about it, and why am I going to argue with it? No. Why? What makes you like it?
What made me like it is the acting in this movie is fantastic by by Crowe, and by Phoenix as well. But it's just how big they make this movie feel. But it doesn't feel like a waste of space, if that makes any sense. Like, the Colosseum looks huge because it's supposed to be huge, and this fight scene is huge because it's supposed to be huge, and that's what I like about it. It's a big, momentous action movie with a side of drama to it because of what happens to him, to Crowe's character, when he gets basically kicked out of the Empire, and how he can get back in to get his revenge. So this is kind of like a revenge movie, if some people would say as well. It's just he's plotting his time to get his revenge and making sure he strikes at the right possible moment. And that's why I liked it. It's just a good action movie that is, I can watch this again from a week from now, but I can also watch this from like 3 years from now and still enjoy it, I feel.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think you really touched on a big thing for me, which is the performances here. Namely, Russell Crowe, obviously, is a great lead in this movie. I don't know if he's necessarily deserving of the Best Actor Oscar, but I'd have to see what the other, people in contention were that year. Let me actually, I want to see because I think he's good in this movie, but I wouldn't say he's incredible. To Ed Harrison, Pollock, Jeffrey Rush in Quills, Javier Bardem in Before Night Falls, and Tom Hanks in Castaway. I probably would have given it to Tom Hanks in Castaway if it were me.
Okay.
And I probably would have swapped it. I would have given Joaquin the Oscar because I think Joaquin is best performance of the movie, hands down. You know, he is just like, he's just an evil guy. And he plays it so well.
That's the thing. You can have an evil character, but the actor or actress doesn't portray that evil enough. But he takes it and runs with it and says, yeah, we're good. Let's keep going. Like, he's so good in this movie. I love it. And that's what creates a good villain too. I think, was this in your villains?
If it wasn't, I mean, it wasn't part of the list, but I think I mentioned him.
Mentioned it, yeah.
If I didn't, I mean, you know, it's just because there are so many good villains.
Exactly.
You know, but yeah, great villain. Also, Connie Nielsen is great in this movie, and Jamin Hansu, who does not get enough attention, is really, really great here as well. And I feel like the supporting cast, you know, they're never really there long enough for you to like really grow attached to them, except for like Jamin Hansu, right?
Yeah.
But you know, like they do all a very good job, and they don't go above and beyond the main characters, which is what you want your supporting cast to do.
Yeah, but so I also do feel like that Phoenix, Joaquin, does kind of get on the level of Crow in this movie. Because of how outstanding he was at being a villain. Because Crow is the main character in this movie, but I would have loved to see just a Joaquin Phoenix like end of that of this movie, which would be awesome to see.
Yeah, he's great. But another thing you did touch on that I really like as well is the scale of this movie. The opening battle sequence is enormous in this movie. And, you know, I think, like, and I mentioned that this was kind of like the Saving Private Ryan and My Friends and I, like, that was a big reason why. It felt like the D-Day landing just in Roman times. It was something really, really special. And I really enjoyed that. Also, again, the scale of the Colosseum is fantastic. I mean, the special effects don't always hold up as much. But, you know, hey, it still looks great for 2000. It's really impressive.
Pretty good, yeah.
And so that is a really awesome kind of collection of things that help make this movie work. The costume design, the set design, you know, the stunt choreography, which is something that doesn't get enough attention, is really good in this movie too. The kind of chariot chases and like the shots with like the tiger like rushing out of people, even though it's definitely cut together, but really, really good. It kind of wants me to start. I kind of want to start talking about the things that I don't really like as much about this movie.
Okay.
And because one of them is kind of related. So there is the scale aspect of this movie. It's a very large scale film. And in being a large scale film, I think this movie is over long. I do not think it needs to be as long as it needs to be. It is one of those things where most of the time, Ridley Scott, for better or for worse, he's a director I love, but he definitely doesn't know when to just say stop. Like he just kind of keeps going, and it almost feels like everything he films, it feels like he barely cuts anything. Like his recent movie Napoleon has a director's cut, which is like crazy to me, but it must have been the studio saying it's got to be shorter, right?
Yeah,
you know, because the director's cut's like 4 hours for that movie. Like, you know, this movie's 155 minutes. That's 2.5 hours. And it's not all fantastic. I mean, like, you know, the story, like we talked about the performances. The villain is great. Russell Crowe is great. The set design, the scale, these are all great things. But the story itself, like beyond some emotional moments,
it's kind of paper cut.
It's very paper thin, I think, is what you're trying to say. It's a very, it's just a revenge movie. It's just the fact that it's set during this time period, which is why I think a lot of people remember it. And to be fair, Crowe does a great job emotionally of portraying what he's going through. It's the actual written part. The dialogue in this movie is great as well, but like just the overall like plot is just so formulaic.
Yeah,
like, it feels like it's to a formula. Like he's a top of his class, and then they're like, you know what? Nah, you're gonna be a slave now. We're gonna kill your family. Oh darn! And then he's gonna become a gladiator, and then they're gonna get so good. They're the best gladiators around because he's a great general.
Yeah.
So then they're gonna go all the way to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And then wouldn't you know it, the emperor's the asshole he's trying to get revenge on.
Yeah.
To be fair, the scene where he does reveal himself,
great,
fantastic. But the overall story, and I think that's my biggest thing with this movie, is I feel like I used to love this movie a lot more until I started digging in a little bit deeper. That this movie is a lot of great and memorable sequences.
Yeah.
But as a whole is where it starts to kind of falter. It's those moments between the sequences that are just kind of where I'm like, all right, whatever.
That no one really talks about. It's a moment movie and not a. I don't want to call it a moment movie. I don't want to take that the wrong way for everybody who's listening. But it is. It's like, oh my gosh, that tiger scene. Oh my gosh, the reveal when he goes to what? It's like, so what happened in between that though? Do you
like? Oh, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Oh, there's just it's like okay, cool.
And I totally understand that. I totally understand where you're coming from, because a lot of people will give you the big plots, the not twist, but like the face reveal, the reveal and everything. But it's like, okay, but there's stuff that happened in between that. Do you guys not remember it? And they go, it's not important. I go, it kind of is though, because that's the story.
But I think the biggest thing about that too is that, like, yes, I'm saying that the plot is not very good, but the performances are what gets you through it, because they're so, encapsulating that you just want to watch them.
Exactly.
So, I definitely understand that. And so, yeah, it's, I think that part of the movie, it's fine. It could be a lot better, but it's fine. But yeah, again, it is a little too long, honestly.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying about, like,
and I never really argue about that with any of these. And I think that's because there's just it's just moments, and these really good moments are then interspliced with things that just aren't as interesting. And I think a lot of those could have been cut down.
Yeah, it could have been cut down, but I can see how you can say that Scott kind of keeps the camera kind of rolling too long. It's like, okay, they're talking. Okay, they're still talking about the same thing. Like, this could have paused and cut here, gone to another place.
Yeah. I'm literally trying to think of anything else about this movie. I think we really have touched on a lot of the points that I think that it also does buck a couple of the trends that movies like this also had. As I'm looking through Letterboxd here, I'm looking at obviously my own review and stuff, but a lot of people have been pointing out this movie doesn't have unnecessary sex or romance scenes. Like, it is purely a revenge. I'm just gonna call it a fantasy. It is a revenge fantasy. Not a lot of this movie, and that is my other big issue. This movie is not historically accurate.
No,
there are accurate things in it. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure that there are a lot of accurate things. But overall, it's just not this didn't actually happen. They think I would have been a lot more intrigued if this had actually happened. If this were a real event. Would have been a little bit more intrigued. I would have been a lot more engaged, I think. But the fact that this is just a revenge fantasy set in Rome during this time period, it loses me a little bit. It's just an action movie. And I sorry to kind of take away the spotlight from you for a second there. I do agree with both. I don't think Siskel was able to watch this before he passed away, but Roger Ebert, I know for sure, was very confused as to why this got nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture or anything like that. Technically, get it, but Best Picture, it's because it's just an action revenge movie.
Yeah,
I don't know why and how it got Best Picture.
Yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say, but it's okay.
Sorry. This is a movie. This is a year that had there is a film here that is much better, that should have won the Best Picture this year, and that is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Should have won Best Picture.
Got to watch that. Yeah.
Incredible movie. Even Traffic has a little bit more to it. But the other films that year were Chocolat and Erin Brockovich, which are two movies that not a lot of people remember. My mom is a huge fan of Chocolat, so I do hear about it occasionally. But like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is the highest rated movie out of all of these.
Yeah.
You know, like it is a near flawless movie. Granted, it did win Academy Awards. It did win Best International Feature Film. I believe it also won. Let me see here. I know I'm taking up time of Gladiator to talk about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but also won cinematography, which it does have better cinematography than Gladiator. Also won original score. Don't know if I would necessarily agree with that one. But then best art direction, yeah, 100%. This should have won best picture. But this was also during a time when it was very rare for movies that were not made in America or even England to be nominated for best picture, let alone win it. And so there's definitely a little bit of that bias there. Because, I mean, I think of the critic response. This has Gladiator has a 67 on Metacritic. One of the lowest rated Best Picture movies ever that I've seen. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon had a 94. And is still universally revered. Now, to be fair, Gladiator is still universally revered. And I would say that I'm on the lower end of people who enjoyed this movie. A lot of people really love this movie. And to all fairness to them, more than welcome to love it. But I think that just, you know, it lets me down more. Like, again, it's just great moments. But it's everything in between those moments that I'm just like, all right, could have cut it down. Could have trimmed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally understand as well.
Okay, Kevin, so let's go ahead and wrap this episode up. I know it's kind of a little bit of a shorter one than usual, but not a whole lot to say here, unfortunately. But Kevin, this was your pick this week, so why don't you give your thoughts, score, review, all that?
Yeah. With this movie, Gladiator, amazing performances by Joaquin and Crow, especially Joaquin Phoenix. Really good revenge film in a historic, not accurate, but historic scenery, we would call it. Setting. There we go. Historic setting. A big scale for big fights and action sequences, which was fantastic, but it does taper off a little bit in between moments in the movie, which we talked about as well. So I'm going to change my score. I had it at a 92 out of 100. I'm going to give it an 89 out of 100 because of what you talked about being don't call this movie a moment movie, but moments and then dialogue, or it kind of takes too long between big scenes in this movie.
Sure. For me, I said that while it may or may not always be historically accurate, the overly long Gladiator mostly holds up to this day, with Crow's passionate performance and Phoenix's incredible villain leading the way. Unfortunately, it's just a string of memorable events tied together loosely with things that are not as interesting. And so my score has actually changed on this movie. Since I first reviewed it on the podcast, I am now giving Gladiator probably the lowest score I think that I've given on any movie club episode. It might be. I'll have to go back and double check. But I am giving Gladiator a 74. So that equates to a 3.5 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. So the question now falls to you. What do you think of Gladiator? I'm sure a lot of you down in the comment section are going to love this movie, so we'd love to hear why I'm wrong, apparently. But go ahead and leave those comments in the section below. Just remember to be considerate of one another, because, you know, one of them could be a general who you ousted, and they're going to come back and get revenge. But next week, we're going to be covering the silent film Metropolis. Very excited about this one. It's going to be a doozy. So make sure if you want to watch it before next week, it is streaming currently on Tubi, where you can check it out. That way you won't be spoiled when we cover it. That's going to be about it. So thank you so much for watching. We do have this show that goes live every Friday at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, just in time for your morning commute, journey, walk, jog, whatever. And we also have our live stream that goes live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So go ahead and join us there for movie news, reviews, and more. And again, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, make sure to keep those eyes on the screen.